unconventional path, you could say, to leading such a critical agency. And it really makes you think, what are the implications here for the future of the Social Security Administration?
Exactly. So that's what we're going to unpack in this deep dive. We've got two big things on the agenda. First, yeah, we'll get into the background of this new commissioner, Bizignano, and how he got appointed, because it definitely raised some eyebrows. And then second, we'll pivot to this bill that just passed the House. We need to look at how that might impact Social Security and also Medicaid.
Right. And we'll try to go beyond just the headlines, really dig into what these changes could actually mean for these, vital programs. It connects to a bigger picture, doesn't it?
It does.
The whole intersection of political appointments, new laws, and what it means for the social safety net in the U.S.
Absolutely. And you'll definitely want to stick around to the end. We're going to explore those potential links between political donations and these kinds of top jobs.
Right.
And also what the fine print in this new legislation might actually mean for, your financial security, your healthcare access. So welcome to the deep dive. Let's get into it.
Okay.
So, yeah, this Frank Bizignano thing, it really does jump out. The guy who's now in charge of Social Security openly says he didn't know what the job was.
It's pretty surprising, isn't it?
The Young Turks video really hit on this, just how unexpected it is. This isn't some minor bureaucratic role, right?
Yeah.
It affects millions of people's lives directly.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is the contrast. You've got his apparent lack of understanding about the SSA itself versus his background. He was the head of a big financial tech company, Ficerve.
Right, Ficerve. So he's managed large organizations, complex payment systems.
Exactly. Lots of executive experience there. But, and this is the key point from the reporting, absolutely zero prior government experience. None. Especially not with Social Security policy or running that kind of agency.
Yeah.
So it really begs the question, how well do those private sector skills actually transfer to the unique challenges of, a public service job this big?
Precisely. No specific track record here. But, okay, this is where it gets really interesting. And the Young Turks video highlighted this too. Mr. Bizignano, he's got quite a history as a political donor. A significant one. Apparently, the Bizignano family has given something like $2.67 million to federal campaigns and political groups since the early 2000s. And that includes big chunks to super PACs backing Trump.
That definitely raises questions, doesn't it, about how much influence money, financial contributions might have on who gets picked for these really key government roles.
For sure.
And the fact that he donated to, what was it, at least 9 senators?
9 senators who voted on his confirmation. Yeah. Including Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader.
Right. It highlights that really complex relationship, between campaign money and who ends up in leadership.
It absolutely does. And then there's the whole context around his confirmation vote, which was pretty close, 53-47.
Right.
This was all happening when there were reports coming out from the Social Security Administration talking about possible mass layoffs of federal workers, program cuts, closing offices.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. And the plan to cut back phone services nationwide?
That's the one. They walked it back later, thankfully.
Yeah.
But the Young Turks video mentioned his nomination sparked mass fears.
Well, you can see why.
Yeah. Given that backdrop, all that uncertainty and potential cuts, bringing in someone who admits they don't know the agency, it's understandable it would cause a lot of anxiety.
The timing is definitely significant there. You've got this climate of concern already swirling around the SSA's stability, its accessibility, and then you nominate someone who openly admits they're starting from scratch on understanding the agency's basics. It just amplified those public worries.
But, okay, Bizignano has laid out some plans. He mentioned Doge, which I think we assume was a typo or misreport for AI.
Almost certainly AI, yeah. Artificial intelligence.
Right. So AI, rebuilding the website, using AI for phone support. He's talking about a digital-first mindset, even comparing it to Amazon.
Interesting comparison.
Yeah, and he did offer assurances, said Social Security isn't going away. President Trump agrees on that. And he also specifically said he has no intent to RAF people.
RAF meaning reduction in force, layoffs.
Right, no immediate plans for layoffs, according to him.
Well, that emphasis on tech, on modernizing, it's clear. It fits a broader trend, using digital tools for efficiency, better user experience.
Sure.
But the success of that stuff, it really hinges on actually understanding the system you're changing. The existing Social Security setup, who the beneficiaries are, their specific needs, the whole regulatory environment.
Good point.
So, yeah, wanting to be like Amazon is, well, it's an ambition. But it's crucial to remember the huge differences between selling stuff online and running a government agency that handles complex social benefits. They're just fundamentally different beasts.
That's a really crucial distinction. Now, there are, of course, different takes on this appointment. The Young Turks video mentioned a Social Security official who kind of downplayed the Googling comment, suggesting Bizignano was maybe just poking fun.
Ah, okay.
And arguing that he brings a valuable and much-needed outside perspective. The idea being his business background could bring in fresh ideas, maybe make things more efficient.
That's the argument for bringing in private sector leaders, right? They might see things differently, not be stuck in the old bureaucratic ways. Maybe they can spot new, more effective ways to deliver services.
But then you've got the other side. The viewpoint the Young Turks video really leaned into, which is, questioning why someone with that big donation history gets put in charge of something so critical.
The conflict of interest concern.
Right, the worry that decisions might end up favoring, I don't know, personal or political agendas over what's best for Social Security recipients.
Right.
Or just, basic mismanagement.
Yeah.
And there was even that speculation about him maybe being set up as a fall guy if unpopular cuts or changes have to happen later.
That underscores the tension, doesn't it, between political appointments and the need for actual expertise, for impartiality, for public trust, especially in agencies handling these vital programs.
Yeah.
The concern is that if you start prioritizing donors for these leadership spots, it could really undermine the agency's effectiveness and just erode public confidence. And that fall guy theory, well, it's speculative, sure, but it taps into a wider skepticism about the motivations behind these kinds of appointments and, frankly, about accountability.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about this bill that recently passed the House. Hustle's video covered this. House Speaker Johnson got it through, but just barely, like a really narrow vote.
Yeah, 215, 214, with one present, I think. Very tight.
Super tight.
Yeah.
And President Trump was apparently pushing the Senate hard to pass it quickly. But what's interesting is even some Republicans voted against it.
Right, mainly because of worries about increasing deficits, at least in the short term.
Yeah. So that narrow margin, it really shows there wasn't exactly broad agreement on this thing, even within the party that pushed it through.
Absolutely. The fact that members of the Speaker's own party had issues, citing fiscal concerns, it suggests the bill's contents aren't universally loved, even by those who might generally agree with the overall goals.
Okay, so one of Trump's big campaign promises was about taxes on Social Security. Remember, no taxes on Social Security.
Oh, yeah, that was a major talking point.
Well, according to the Hustle video, this bill, it doesn't actually do that. What it includes is a limited tax deduction for seniors, $4,000.
Okay.
But, and this is key, it only lasts until 2028. It expires.
Ah, sunset clause. So not permanent relief.
Not permanent. And the commentator in the Hustle video made the point that failing to deliver on that full promise could actually give Democrats an opening in the midterms. They can point to a broken promise to older voters.
That makes sense. It really highlights the political fallout, doesn't it? Especially with something as sensitive as Social Security taxes, which hits a huge politically active group. That gap between promising zero taxes and delivering a temporary limited deduction, yeah, opponents could definitely use that to question how reliable the ruling party's commitments are to seniors. Is it real relief or just, symbolic and short-lived?
No, there's another interesting piece in this bill. Senator Ted Cruz apparently called it the Trump savings account for newborns. Hustle's video explained this.
Okay, what's the deal with that?
The idea is the government puts $1,000, like seed money, into an investment account for every newborn.
$1,000 from the government?
Yeah. For kids born before January 1st, 2024, under 8 U.S. citizens, parent has a valid Social Security number. Those are the requirements mentioned.
Gotcha. And then what? Can people add to it?
Yes. You can contribute up to $5,000 a year after tax money, and there are rules about taking money out. You can take that at 25, get full access at 30.
So it's like a long-term savings vehicle seeded by the government. An interesting idea, trying to encourage savings from day one, framed as helping families, I guess. But, like the commentator in the Hustle video said, connecting this to boosting the fertility rate, that seems, well, a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, that seemed tenuous.
The other thing mentioned, the child tax credit increase from $2,000 to $2,500, that's probably going to have a much more immediate, tangible impact on family finances.
Good point.
These savings accounts, presumably they'd have specific investment options, maybe tax advantages like a 529 plan. The details there would be really important for how much they could actually grow over time.
True. The video didn't get into those specifics. Okay, beyond that, there are other tax things in the bill, Hustle mentioned eliminating taxes on tips and overtime.
Okay, that sounds significant.
But again, those also expire in 2028.
Ah, another sunset clause. Okay.
And there are also tax deductions for buying American-made cars. But the industry experts cited in the video, they basically said the actual financial benefit to the consumer would be pretty small, like maybe $20 a month on the loan.
So not a huge windfall for car buyers.
Doesn't sound like it. It seems like maybe these are more about ticking boxes on specific campaign promises, or maybe appealing to certain industries, rather than giving substantial broad relief to individuals.
That makes sense. These more targeted tax breaks, they often do align with specific pledges. And those sunset clauses, expiring in 2028, it does make you wonder about the long-term economic plan versus maybe shorter-term political goals.
Right. Now, let's get into the Medicaid part of the bill. Hustle's video spent a good amount of time here, and there's a lot of criticism swirling around these changes.
Okay. What are the main concerns?
The big one is that these changes could lead to healthcare cuts for about 14 million people.
14 million, that's huge.
Yeah, including really vulnerable groups, babies, new moms, people who are unemployed, even some seniors and folks in nursing homes. The video even brought up criticism from Pocahontas about the weird timing of the votes, kind of implying it wasn't a very transparent process.
Wow. That potential scale, 14 million people. It's definitely significant. And the criticism really flags serious worries about hitting access to essential healthcare for a lot of people, including those who are already vulnerable. And yeah, unusual vote timing never looks good, does it? It feeds perceptions that maybe things weren't debated openly enough.
So what are the actual changes? Hustle's video broke down the key ones. First, there's a new work requirement.
Ah, work requirements for Medicaid. That's always controversial.
Yeah. This is for non-disabled adults who don't have dependent children. They'd need to do 80 hours a month of work or volunteering.
80 hours. Okay, what else?
Undocumented immigrants would be explicitly ineligible for Medicaid coverage.
Right.
And coverage for gender transition services would also be excluded.
What?
Plus, there's a new 6-month enrollment requirement being brought in. And all these changes are set to kick in at the end of 2026.
Those are some really substantial policy shifts. They could have huge effects on the Medicaid program and the people who rely on it. That work requirement, for instance. It could be a massive hurdle for people facing barriers to finding or keeping work, potentially costing them their health coverage.
Definitely.
And excluding specific groups or specific services, well, that obviously restricts access to needed care for those people directly.
And the Hustle video also specifically mentioned a worry about seniors, pointing out that some older adults might really struggle to meet those new work requirements to stay eligible for Medicaid.
That's a really critical point to consider. Even if the work rules are aimed at one group, you have to think about the ripple effects, the unintended consequences for other vulnerable people, like seniors who might have age-related issues or health problems, making 80 hours of work just impossible.
Yeah.
If you're someone depending on Medicaid, you'd be asking, what does this actually mean for me, practically speaking?
And as Hustle pointed out, these Medicaid changes, they do line up with campaign promises Trump made previously.
Right, fulfilling those pledges.
But the video also noted, strong Democratic opposition is pretty much guaranteed in the Senate. And apparently, even some Republican senators are pushing back on the bill.
Oh, really? Why?
Concerns about the national debt again, the potential cost of the overall bill.
Interesting. So internal party disagreement there, too.
Yeah. So the bill's future, at least in its current form, seems pretty uncertain. There's still a chance it could be amended as it goes through the Senate.
That strong opposition, both from Democrats and even within the Republican Party, it really shows the deep divisions over these Medicaid changes. It's a fundamental argument, isn't it, about the government's role in healthcare safety nets versus fiscal concerns. And yeah, amendments are definitely still possible. The final version could look different.
So, okay, let's try to wrap this up. We've really dug into two pretty major things today. First, that unusual appointment of the new Social Security Commissioner, Frank Bizignano, with his own admission about, not knowing the job beforehand.
Right. And how that coincided with all these questions about political donations and how people get these top jobs.
Exactly. And then second, we looked at the key parts of this new bill that just passed the House, how it impacts Social Security, or rather doesn't deliver on the tax promise.
Yeah, no elimination of Social Security taxes, just that temporary deduction.
Right. And introducing those new Trump savings accounts, alongside potentially really significant changes and restrictions to Medicaid eligibility and what it covers.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground there.
And it does make you step back and think about the bigger picture. What are the potential long-term impacts here? for Social Security stability, for how accessible the benefits are.
And for Medicaid, too. What do these changes mean for healthcare access for millions, especially the most vulnerable people?
It's hard not to think about the role campaign money might be playing in deciding who leads these crucial agencies. And how the details buried in legislation can have these huge real-world consequences down the line. It feels, I don't know, troubling to see such a potential link between big donations and appointments. Does the data usually show this kind of thing, or is this correlation particularly strong here?
That's a great question, and it leads to a critical point about being an informed citizen, doesn't it? Given everything we've discussed, what can you, the listener, actually do? How can you stay informed about these vital issues? How can you advocate for the future of these safety nets?
Yeah.
And maybe think more broadly, too. If we see more people without deep expertise getting put into key government roles, what could that mean for other essential public services down the road? These are really important questions for all of us to wrestle with as things keep evolving.
Okay, so let's dive into this. The newly confirmed Social Security Commissioner, Frank Bizignano, he actually admitted. He admitted he Googled what the job was after he got nominated.
Wow. Yeah, I saw that. Google it.
Yeah. I mean, just think about that for a minute. You get picked to run, this massive program, a cornerstone of American life, and the first thing you do is hit up a search engine. It's quite a start.
It certainly is.